I must have been in second or third grade. It's hard to remember details from that long ago, but this memory has always stayed with me. It was a school day, and it had been raining nonstop. After picking me up, my parents left for some upscale event, a fundraiser, a dinner. I don't really remember. They were supposed to return that night. But the storm got worse. The roads became unsafe, and they ended up staying at a friend's house nearby instead. I remember them calling on the house phone, apologizing over and over for leaving me alone, even though I insisted I was fine. My mom gave me a list of instructions. Lock all doors and windows, leave at least one light on, keep the blinds closed. Typical safety stuff. At the time, I didn't understand why it mattered so much. I was excited to have the house to myself, unlimited candy, no bedtime, and total freedom. I settled on the living room couch to watch TV, thinking I'd take care of everything later. I fell asleep at some point. Sugar crash got me hard and woke up much colder than I expected. Nothing out of the ordinary, maybe, but enough for a little alarm to go off in my head. Even tired, I remembered my mom's instructions. I got up, checked the doors and windows, closed the blinds, and made sure the lights were on. Everything was sealed tight. Still, the cold persisted. I pressed my hands against a few windows, thinking maybe a draft had snuck in, but there was nothing. I figured the heater might have gone out. That was a reasonable enough explanation for a child, so I didn't think more about it. I headed upstairs to my room, ready to crawl into bed. That's when I realized just how loud the storm had become. From my window, I could see and hear everything. Rain lashed the glass as though trying to break through. Lightning lit up the sky in bursts, followed by deafening thunder. I wasn't scared of storms, but the intensity kept me awake. I worried a tree might fall on the house. Then I noticed it. Odd sounds. Creaking, shifting like wood, moving but not the kind of noise that carpeted floors make. Not from outside either. It didn't match the storm. Something else was moving. I sat up, straining to hear. Lightning flashed. In that split second of light, I saw the closet door ajar. I was certain it had been closed before. Something had opened it. I didn't scream. I didn't think. I just got out of bed as quietly as I could and crept downstairs. The walk from my room to the front door felt like a mile, like it took an eternity. I hid under the dining room table and finally started crying. I was completely alone, and whatever was in the house could reach me at any moment. Then I heard it, footsteps on the stairs. They weren't normal, like someone jumping and bouncing down, off balance, unpredictable. I froze. Any sound I made could give me away. From under the table, I saw them. Bare feet, muddy, yellow-tinged legs, covered in cuts and scratches. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. They dropped something. A wrench clattered against the floor. My heart jumped. I could have screamed, but I didn't. I was frozen. The figure didn't pick up the wrench. It just stood there, silent, as if waiting. I watched, wide-eyed, until finally it moved, stumbling and shuffling through the first floor, chaos in every step. The front door opened and shut, and then silence. I stayed under the table for a long time. Part fear, part trauma. I didn't want to move. Eventually, I picked up the wrench and ensured the front door was locked. I slunk back upstairs and into bed. I didn't tell my parents. I was afraid they'd get mad for not following instructions perfectly, and I didn't want to worry them. I kept it to myself for years. When I finally did tell them, it took convincing for them to believe me. Looking back, I should have told them immediately, but it didn't matter by then. The fear and shock had already taken root. That night traumatized me for years. I slept with a nightlight for a long time afterward, and the dark has always made me uneasy. One lesson I never forgot. always lock your doors at night. I can't remember exactly when, but sometime in elementary school, maybe second or third grade, I started having a recurring nightmare. Half lucid, half dream, it would happen every few months for years. Here's how it went. I would lie in bed, but not from my own perspective. Instead, I'd be hovering near the ceiling, looking down at my body like a security camera feed. That out-of-body feeling was terrifying. I'd try to move toward myself, but I could never get closer than the ability to swivel my head and glance around the room. I was half aware it was a dream, but that didn't make it any less frightening. After a few moments, I would notice things that were off about my bedroom. The digital clock on my nightstand was always counting backward the first subtle warning. Then came the drawings. Crayon sketches taped to random spots on the walls and dresser. I had no memory of ever making them, and I didn't draw much as a kid. The images were always the same. A row of people holding hands, smiling, with one smaller figure I assumed was me. They always stood in front of a house with a blue roof. Another detail that haunted me was an old toy train, always in a different spot on my floor, despite having lost it years before Dot after surveying my room. I would get the unexplainable urge to look out the window, and there he would be, a man, just inches from the glass. I only ever remember a few details: short gray hair and a cut on his left temple. He would watch me sleep for a few seconds, then start clawing at the window as though trying to get in. That's when I'd wake up. Sometimes I'd immediately check the window. Other times, fear kept me frozen. Either way, I always confirmed the glass was intact. Nothing had ever been there. After the fourth occurrence, I finally told my parents. My mom reassured me that recurring dreams weren't unusual, especially for kids my age. My dad reminded me they were always nearby if I felt scared. I nodded, pretending it helped, but at DIDN single quotes T. Seeing my lingering fear, my dad took my hand, and we checked the exterior of the house together. No footprints. No marks on the windows. Nothing. That still didn't calm me. This continued for nearly a year. The dreams would appear roughly once every few months. Then, for a time, they stopped. I let myself believe it was over. But then, unexpectedly, the nightmare returned, unchanged. The clock, the drawings, the train, all the same. But now, there was a horrifying difference. My bedroom window was open. I woke up paralyzed, completely immobile. Sleep paralysis, but unlike anything I'd felt before. My brain screamed for me to check the window, but I couldn't move. A cold draft seemed to blow through the room, despite the window being locked. My chest tightened, as if someone or something was on the other side, ready to enter. When I finally moved, I confirmed the window was secure. After that, I began mentally preparing myself each night before bed, thinking about the dream in an attempt to face it. Surprisingly, it worked. The next few times, the fear was diminished. I didn't even check the window afterward. By the next recurrence, I was barely scared at all. Eventually, I told my parents again, this time with more detail. When I described the man, particularly the scar on his forehead, their reaction shifted, subtly but noticeably. My dad asked me if I was sure about the scar. I confirmed I was. They exchanged a look, unspoken, and I knew something more was going on. A few days later, my parents explained. When I was a toddler, there had been a man named Brian, someone they called Uncle Brian, though he wasn't family, just a close friend of my dad's. He had been around often when I was too young to remember much. Something happened, a falling out severe enough that they completely cut ties. Brian was forbidden from ever coming near us again, especially me. They didn't go into detail about what happened. The scar? Brian had a noticeable scar on his forehead from a car accident years before I was born. It clicked in my mind. Somehow, my dream brain had merged a memory or instinct of him with this recurring nightmare. My dad theorized the dreams were my mind processing something buried deeply from a time I couldn't form memories. He mentioned how attached I had been to Brian as a toddler, how I cried when he left, how I wanted him to read me to sleep. That explained why the scar appeared in my dreams, even though I had no conscious recollection of him. Afterward, the frequency of the dreams dropped dramatically, maybe once or twice a year. But then one night, it escalated. I glimpsed movement outside my window. A flicker. For the first time, the fear I had suppressed returned fully. I screamed. My parents rushed in. My dad ran outside, barefoot, while my mom held me. They called the police. Later, my dad told me he thought he saw faint footprints under the window. He was certain it couldn't have been Brian. He didn't know where we lived anymore. After that, the dreams never returned. Even now, years later, I can't shake the thought that every time the nightmare came, someone could have been watching. Whether it was Brian or some stranger, or my brain filling in gaps, I'll probably never know. My parents avoid the topic too. I've long stopped asking. What stays with me, though, is the sickening thought. Those recurring dreams were never entirely just dreams. Something, somehow, was outside my window, observing. It was the last day of 8th grade, the kind of day full of excitement and bittersweet goodbyes. Everyone was scribbling signatures and cheesy messages in each other's yearbooks. My middle school was huge, over 1,000 students, so the teachers collected yearbooks and passed them around classrooms to keep it somewhat manageable. Of course, that meant anyone could write anything in anyone's book. Some kids used it to be mean, some to joke around. When I got my yearbook back, I eagerly flipped through it. Most of it was the usual goofy notes from friends. Then I noticed a signature I didn't recognize. Samuel Robinson III. Underneath his name was a short, unsettling message. Hags, I'll be seeing you again. I froze. I had never spoken to this kid. I had no idea why he'd write something like that. At first, I chalked it up to some weird prank or mistake and tried to forget it. A few hours later, I was hosting a sleepover in the basement with my best friends, Kevin, David, and Kieran. We were eating Doritos and playing Call of Duty. My parents' bedroom was 3 floors above us, so we weren't worried about noise. Sometime before midnight, we heard a sharp knock at the storm door. The sound silenced us instantly. Who would knock like that? Someone trying not to wake my parents, or someone who knew we were down there. It didn't make sense. The knocking was rhythmic, consistent. Kieran, without thinking, called out, "Who's there?" I wanted to stop him. That single word had just broadcast our location. There was a long pause, then a muffled voice. "Come around to the back door." It was high-pitched, cheerful, like a friend trying to join our sleepover. Definitely a teenager's voice, not fake. I was scared, but my friends seemed excited, thinking it was funny. They insisted I check. Reluctantly, we crept upstairs. I approached the back door slowly, my heart pounding. Through the narrow glass pane, I saw a shadow. As I got closer, the face came into view, and my jaw nearly hit the floor. It was him. Samuel Robinson III. The same kid from the yearbook. I stopped my friends from opening the door, explaining what had happened. Sam was still standing there, watching. He gestured toward the side of the house, motioning me to the window. I cracked the kitchen window just a bit. My friends hung back. I asked him what he wanted, telling him I recognized him from the yearbook. He smiled and said, "Oh, so you got my message." Then he said something even stranger. He always watched me from afar. That we could have been good friends. I nodded, trying to keep him calm. But I had to know. "How did you know where I lived?" He didn't answer, Before I could de-escalate, David muttered, "Creepy stalker. Piss off." Sam's expression changed instantly. The friendly smile twisted into pure hatred. He screamed at me, threatening my friends, saying bizarre things he shouldn't have known, how my ex hated me, things only my family could know. He reached for the window, trying to force it open. I slammed it shut and locked it. He banged and snarled like an animal. The noise drew my parents. They rushed down the stairs, asking what happened. Sam ran. My dad raced outside, but couldn't find him. My parents didn't call the police that night. They told us to go back to sleep and let the school handle it the next day. The next morning, we learned the truth. Sam had been expelled weeks before the year ended. He shouldn't have been at school at all. The yearbooks had already been printed, explaining why his picture was still there. Somehow, he had snuck in just to write that message. No one could trace him. It was as if he and his family didn't exist. The school kept things quiet, and the incident faded outwardly. But I never forgot it. To this day, I have no idea how he knew where I lived. The leading theory: a troubled, mentally challenged kid fixated on me, possibly stalking me for months. My parents were worried for weeks. Living in that house never felt the same again. It was the last day of 8th grade, the typical mix of excitement and bittersweet goodbyes. Everyone was scribbling signatures and cheesy messages in each other's yearbooks. My school was huge, over 1,000 students, so the teachers passed the yearbooks around classrooms to keep it manageable. Of course, that meant anyone could write anything in anyone else's book. Some kids were mean. Some were silly. When I got my yearbook back, most of it was the usual goofy messages. Then I noticed a signature I didn't recognize. Samuel Robinson III. Underneath, in simple but unsettling handwriting, it read, "Hags, I'll be seeing you again." I froze. I had never spoken to this kid. I had no idea why he would write something like that. I chalked it up to a weird prank and tried to forget it. A few hours later, I was hosting a sleepover in the basement with my best friends, Kevin, David, and Kieran. We were eating Doritos and playing Call of Duty. My parents' bedroom was 3 floors above us, so noise wasn't an issue. Sometime before midnight, we heard a sharp knock at the storm door. Instantly, everything went silent. Who would knock like that? Someone who didn't want to wake my parents, or someone who knew we were down there. The knocking was rhythmic, precise. Kieran, without thinking, called out, "Who's there?" I wanted to stop him. That single word broadcast our location. A long pause. Then a muffled voice answered, "Come around to the back door." It was high-pitched, cheerful, like a friend trying to join our sleepover. Definitely a teenager. I was scared, but my friends seemed excited, thinking it was funny. They insisted I check. Reluctantly, we crept upstairs. I approached the back door slowly, heart pounding. Through the narrow glass pane, I saw a shadow. As I got closer, the face became clear, and my jaw dropped. It was him. Samuel Robinson III, the same kid from the yearbook. I stopped my friends from opening the door, explaining what had happened. Sam was still standing there, watching. He gestured toward the side of the house, motioning me to the window. I cracked the kitchen window just a little. My friends hung back. I asked what he wanted, telling him I recognized him from the yearbook. He smiled. "Oh, so you got my message," he said. Then he added, "He always watched me from afar. We could have been good friends." I nodded, trying to keep him calm. But I had to know. "How did you know where I lived?" He didn't answer. Before I could respond, David muttered, "Creepy stalker. Piss off." Sam's expression changed instantly. The friendly smile twisted into pure hatred. He screamed at us, threatening my friends, saying things he had no right knowing, details about my ex, random personal stuff. He lunged for the window. I slammed it shut and locked it. He banged and snarled like an animal. Almost shattering the glass dot, my parents came rushing down, asking what was happening. Sam ran. My dad raced outside, but couldn't find him. That my parents didn't call the police that night. They told us to go back to sleep and let the school handle it the next day. The following morning, we learned the truth. Sam had been expelled weeks earlier. He shouldn't have been at school at all. The yearbooks had already been printed, which is why his picture was still included. Somehow, he had snuck in just to write that message dot. No one could trace him. It was as if he and his family didn't exist. The school kept things quiet, but I never forgot it. I still have no idea how he knew where I lived. The theory is he was a troubled, mentally unstable teen who had fixated on me and may have been stalking me for some time. My parents were worried for weeks. Living in that house never felt the same again. Even now, I shudder thinking about how close it came to turning into something much worse. If I hadn't gone home that night, I might not have reached Lindsay's car in time. And without that, the police may never have found those guys' car.